Thank you very much indeed, Paramita. It's a lovely introduction. Yes, so I'm going to be talking about going for refuge to the Three Jewels. And I'd like to invite us all to start by taking a journey back in time, down through the centuries. So let's just whiz back through the centuries. Through the 20th century, when most of us were born, 20th century with its wars and its innovations, through the Victorian era, the rise of the Industrial Revolution, through medieval Britain, there was a feudal society, and down through the time of the Anglo-Saxons, the Romans, and into the Bronze Age. So over 2,500 years ago, in this country, we'd be at the beginning of the Bronze Age. But I'd like us to move over to northern India. And we find ourselves there in a place of settled agricultural communities with people working the land. But there were also a lot of spiritual seekers at that time. And walking between these settlements is a particularly extraordinary being. And this is an awakened one, the Buddha Shakyamuni. And as the Buddha trod the tracks of India, he would meet and engage with people from all walks of life, men, women, mothers, kings, farmers, merchants, courtesans, the bereaved, criminals, the ill. He would just get into conversation with people, just like we've been doing this evening in the tea room. So he would be engaging with all these very, very different human beings. And as the conversation deepened, the Buddha would begin to speak from the depths of his spiritual experience. He would be speaking the Dharma, not perhaps the Dharma as we sometimes think of it, as all those lists, you know, the 5 of this and the 8 of that and 3 of that. You can't quite remember them or add them all up. But he'd be talking just from the depths of his spiritual experience. And the Dharma would be emerging in relation to the person that he was speaking to, revealing the truth and showing them the way leading to enlightenment, leading to awakening. And the person to whom the Buddha was speaking would often be awestruck, amazed, overwhelmed. Something had been revealed to them. For an instant, that person had seen the truth, had experienced the way things are, and completely overwhelmed by that ineffable experience, would exclaim, "Excellent, Lord, excellent." And they would go on to say, in a rather traditional formulation, "It is amazing, Venerable Gautama. It is wonderful, wonderful, Venerable Gautama." Just as if one might raise what has been overturned, or reveal what has been hidden, or point out the way to him, to one who has been lost, or hold out a lamp in the dark, so that those who have eyes may see. So likewise has the truth been explained by Venerable Gautama in many ways. And the person would then go on to say, "Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami." To the Buddha for refuge I go, to the Dharma for refuge I go, to the Sangha for refuge I go. And they would seek, that would be their ordination actually, that would be them declaring themselves as Buddhists and becoming disciples of the Buddha. So this act of going for refuge to the Three Jewels comes from the experience of people meeting the Buddha, and it's very, very significant. Going for refuge represents our positive emotional response to the Buddhist ideal. We've seen the truth, we've glimpsed the truth, and so we want to commit ourselves to it. And the object of our going for refuge, the object of our commitment, is threefold. It's the three jewels, sometimes referred to as the triple gem. We go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, his teaching, and the Sangha, the enlightened community of practitioners, of the followers of the Buddha. And they're symbolized as jewels because jewels are precious and valuable. And on our cases that order members wear that were given at ordination, we have the three jewels. The Buddha is traditionally referred to, seen as a yellow jewel, the Dharma is blue, and the Sangha is red. So I just want to consider each of these three jewels in turn. So as Buddhists, we commit ourselves, we trust in the Buddha's enlightenment. We go to refuge for him, not as a god or a messenger of God, but as a human being who by his own efforts reached the summit of human existence, enlightenment or awakening. He was fully awake to the truth of things, the way things are. We accept him as our mentor and guide, our spiritual guide. And as we go for refuge to the Buddha, we're also in that act, we're implicitly saying we too can become as the Buddha, we too can awake. We can practice the Dharma, follow the path, and also awaken to the truth. So when we go for refuge to the Buddha, when we recite the verses as we did in last week's puja, we go for refuge to the Buddha as the living embodiment of a spiritual ideal, which is a spiritual ideal for us. It's not something remote in the remote past. It's actually an ideal that is alive for us and one that we can realise. In a shorter puja, it's called the threefold puja, we find the line, "The Buddha was born as we are born. What the Buddha attained, I too can attain." So we're saying, that is what I want to be. That is what I want to attain. I want to be enlightened. I want to be awake and develop the fullness of wisdom and compassion. So that's the first of the three jewels to which Buddhists go for refuge. Then the second object of our refuge is the Dharma, the blue jewel, the path or the way of spiritual development. It's the path to the truth, and it has many formulations. For example, there's the threefold way of ethics, meditation, and wisdom. There's the eightfold path. There's the path of the six perfections of the Bodhisattva. But essentially, all formulations of the path are showing us ways that we can grow and develop our human potential. That's the purpose of the Dharma. That's the purpose of the Buddha's teaching, to grow our human potential. So that's a fairly brief summary of the Dharma, and you can have a much deeper sense of it at our festival on Sunday. Then the third object of refuge is the Sangha, the community of noble ones who embody wisdom, compassion, purity of being, and unshakable faith in the Dharma. Now, it's really important to understand with the Sangha jewel what we're going for refuge to. Wonderful as the Sheffield Sangha is, we're not going to refuge to the Sheffield Sangha. We're going for refuge to those great beings who've gained enlightenment. So we're going for refuge to the Arya Sangha, the Noble Sangha, the Sangha of the enlightened followers of the Buddha. We're open to their spiritual influence, and we can learn from them and be inspired by them. And they're also examples to us of the fact that other human beings can gain enlightenment. It wasn't just a one-off that Shakyamuni made it. Other people, if they follow the Dharma, can gain enlightenment. However, on an ordinary day-to-day level, actually the people we're in contact with are the people here in this room, the people at Sheffield Buddhist Centre and other retreat centres in Punyamala. So we enjoy spiritual fellowship with each other, and probably that's most helpful to us most of the time. So while we're putting our complete trust in the Arya Sangha, it's also really important that we value and cherish the people that we're actually in contact with and respect them and value their Dharma practice. But it's really important, just to be very clear about that point. So these are the three refuges, and in committing ourselves to them is what makes us a Buddhist. Usually at the start of our spiritual lives, one of these refuges is stronger than the others, and this could be something that you could explore in your group. Which of the three jewels am I most attracted to? Which of the three jewels holds most meaning for me at this point in time? So that might be something you want to be looking at later. So we are incredibly fortunate that our founder, Urgyen Sangharakshita, saw how central the act of committing oneself to the three jewels was. Because what's happened during the centuries of Buddhist history and the founding of different schools of Buddhism is that commitment to the Buddhist path has become heavily identified with certain lifestyles. So you often find a split between the laity and the monks and nuns, where only the monastic Sangha are considered to be proper Buddhists. So for instance, in the Theravadan school, the Buddhist is defined by the number of precepts they take, and lay followers take 5, and monks take many more. In the Mahayana, Buddhists are divided into those who've taken the Bodhisattva vow and those who haven't. In Zen Buddhism, meditation is emphasized, and in the Pure Land schools, it's devotion. The ordination of women has often been problematic and subservient to the male monastic Sangha. So the nuns have been secondary to the monks and dependent on them for their ordination. So Sangharakshita was able to cut through this diversity and complexity, and he saw that what unites all Buddhists, what makes you a Buddhist, is the act of going for refuge to the three jewels and the reorganization of one's life around that commitment. It's very easy to take this for granted, but the basis on which the Triratna Buddhist order is founded is absolutely radical. We have a united order which is rooted in a shared and deepening commitment to the three jewels. It's not dependent on a lifestyle. So we have this aphorism in the order and movement that commitment is primary and lifestyle, while it's important, is secondary. As Paranita said, I was ordained in 1987, and at the time my son was a toddler. And I think I don't think there was anywhere else in the world that I could have been ordained as a woman and as a mother at that time. And I think that's probably still the case, I'm not quite sure. But and I just have unfailing gratitude to Sangharakshita for the fact that it was possible for my commitment to the Buddhist path to be recognised in those conditions, which it hasn't been for many, many years of Buddhist history. Yes, the Triratna order is very radical in its emphasis on the centrality of going for refuge as the defining act of the Buddhist life. And wonderful as this is, it can also be challenging because we have to work out for ourselves how we're going to express our commitment. You know, there aren't loads of rules and regulations, and it's not like, well, if you do this, this and this, you'll get ordained, or this is what it means to be a Buddhist. We've all got to sort of work it out for ourselves, which is both wonderful and a challenge. So just returning to the phrase, going for refuge, it's a rather odd phrase which comes a bit jargonised really, but going for refuge to the Three Jewels, it's a going, very important, it's a going, we're going for refuge. And in the verse of the puja last week, if you remember, we said, this very day I go for my refuge. It's a very strong statement, I always think. Yes, occasionally you see it translated as I take my refuge, but I think that in a way sort of misses the point, because going for refuge is active. It's not something we do once. So some of you became mitras recently, you made your commitment, end of story, same with getting ordained. You don't just get ordained and that's it. We're actually going for refuge again and again, over and over again. And as our faith and understanding deepens, we'll go for refuge more wholeheartedly. There'll be more of us behind it. So it's an ongoing process of turning from the mundane to the spiritual, to the highest meaning in our life. And within Triratna, we have quite a well-developed body of thought around the different aspects of going for refuge, which I haven't got time to go into in much detail, but I just wanted to pick out 3 of the different levels of going for refuge. So yes, recently quite a few of you became mitras, and you were saying, yes, I'm a Buddhist and I want to practice in this movement. For some, their commitment, and that's what's known as the provisional going for refuge. Not sure about the terminology. Anyway, that's what was called provisional going for refuge. You're recognising the importance of Buddhism, but it's not necessarily central in your life. And then for some people, their commitment will deepen and they'll want to ask for ordination. And people get ordained into the Triratna Buddhist order at the point at which the Three Jewels are central to their lives and can sustain their practice amidst all the competing demands on our time and energy. And in a few weeks, maybe 3, we're going to be welcoming back 3 order members here who've just got ordained, who've made that commitment, where Buddhism is the central defining force, energy in their life. And one of them, many of you will know, was Edward, and he's now Viryananda. Yes, so that's what's called effective going for refuge. And then beyond that, sometimes it's said that's where the real work starts. Beyond effective going for refuge, we're working towards gaining insight into the way things really are. We're looking to enter the stream, so that, and that's known as real going for refuge, where your faith becomes unshakable, and there's still work to be done, but your Buddhist practice has become completely embedded in you. So those are just 3 of the levels of going for refuge. And all of us here in this room are going for refuge to the Three Jewels, and we all know a lot about what it means to go for refuge, because we've spent our entire lives going for refuge to one thing or another. Going for refuge basically means commitment. So, you know, we're all committed to all sorts of things. So we all know what commitment means. There's a verse from the Dharmapada which I'm going to read. The Dharmapada is a very wonderful Buddhist text which is on the shrine. Very old Buddhist text. Many people out of fear flee for refuge to sacred hills, woods, groves, trees and shrines. In reality, this is not a safe refuge. In reality, this is not the best refuge. Fleeing to such a refuge, one is not released from all suffering. One who goes for refuge to the enlightened one, to the truth and the spiritual community, for them, this is a safe refuge. For them, this is the best refuge. Having gone to such a refuge, one is released from all suffering. So the Dhammapada puts it very clearly that the only true refuge that we have is the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. But we believe, or even just hope, that there's something there, out there, which will give us satisfaction, will give us purpose, will shield us from all the instability and unpredictability of life. It may not be hills, groves or trees for us. Maybe it's our job, our family, our partner, perfect place to live, an interest, sport, singing, our car. The list is endless. There's all sorts of things that we're committed to and that we think are going to give us ultimate satisfaction or solve the problem of life for us. We're attached to these things and look to them for security and making us feel all right about ourselves and our world. When we become Buddhists and realise that we are in touch with a path that is deeply meaningful and transcendent, we begin a process of reorientating our lives towards the Buddhist ideal. And in a way, it's very simple. We just have to create conditions in our lives to allow the Dharma to flourish and to align ourselves ever more fully and deeply with the truth. Align ourselves with the way things are and with the call of the beyond. We're developing our ability to respond to higher values. However, the actual process of reorientating our lives can be challenging and it can take time because we're deeply attached to our worldly commitments. We're also prone to doubt, confusion, resistance. So how do we set about this process of reorientating ourselves to bring our Buddhists to begin to sort of make that shift in our lives from a world in which we're committed mainly to worldly things to a world where we're committed to the three refuges? Well, committing ourselves to our meditation practice is a good place to start. Setting up supportive conditions, so if you haven't got a shrine, making a shrine, going to bed early, about half an hour earlier, so that you can really get up properly and be in a good state to meditate. Avoid going through the motions when you do sit down to meditate. Actually, really try to bring yourself into relationship with what's going on and working with the hindrances and so on. Coming to the centre. Going on retreat, I think, is a very, very important and significant way to deepen our practice. And there is a Sangha retreat coming up in about a month, and there are still 6 places left for 6 lucky people. So book now. Practicing ethics. Becoming ever more familiar with the 3 jewels. So, as Bodhinaga said, we have our 3 main festivals. But we can only deeply love what we know. So becoming familiar with the Buddha and his life, and the qualities that you value in him, study the Dharma, develop your friendships in the Sangha, and also read the lives of great Buddhists, Sangharakshita, Dr. Ambedkar, Dada Rinpoche, one of Sangharakshita's teachers, Shantideva, a great 8th century Buddhist, Milarepa, and so on. Learn what going for refuge looks like at a highly developed level where there is no doubt. I think acting as creatively as we can, being generous, open and kind, just on an ordinary everyday level, just extending our sense of awareness and kindness and creativity. So basically putting the mindfulness of breathing and the Metabhavana into practice. And just take the next step for you. That is all you have to do. You just have to take the next step. It may require significant change, or we may find that things simply drop away as we grow out of them. And we see through our dependence on them and attachment to them. Some years ago, quite a few years ago, I made a decision that I didn't want to pursue my career and apply for higher posts. And I also wanted to work part-time. We're actually really, really fortunate in this country, by the way, that we can work part-time. In other parts of the world, you can't work part-time. It's not an option. So we're really fortunate that some of us can work part-time. So I chose not to go up the career ladder, and that was obviously that had consequences. And towards the end of my working life, I found myself in a really rather peculiar position quite a lot of the time, because I had quite a lot of experience, but I didn't have I wasn't in the hierarchy. Well, I was quite low down in hierarchy. But I don't regret that choice at all. I just feel very fortunate that I was able to do that. Another order member, was very good at making money. He didn't feel he was very good at, giving talks or whatever, but he knew he was good at making money, and he decided to do that. So he made a lot of money and he gave it all away. That was his practice, incredibly generous. So it's our choice. Nobody is going to say you've got to do this or you've got to do that. Someone was talking earlier today about maybe moving into a community, which is a really good thing to do. But that's her choice. It's not like anybody's saying this is what you've got to do. It's our choice, and it's a choice that we might have these big things to be making, but also we can just be doing it in the moment. It's a choice to act creatively. That is on Going for Refuge being acted out. I'm just going to read a poem by Jane Hirschfield, which called Tree, which for me beautifully gives beautiful expression to that choice that we have. It is foolish to let a young redwood grow next to a house. Even in this one lifetime, you will have to choose that great, calm being. This clutter of soup pots and books. Already the first branch tips brush at the window. Softly, calmly, immensity taps at your life. So in your groups, you may like to discuss, well, what is the next step for you? What do you need to do next to deepen your going for refuge? Yes, so in Triratna we have a well-developed understanding of going for refuge to the Three Jewels as the definitive act of the Buddhist life, one which we're constantly deepening and which will be expressed in different ways by different people. We're all on this wonderful journey to understand the way things are, and as we practice sincerely and wholeheartedly, our faith and commitment will grow. We'll love the Three Jewels more fully, we'll go for refuge to them ever more deeply, and in the words of the devotional verses called the Triratna Bandhana, which are verses expressing with reverence to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, we'll reach a point where no other refuge than the Buddha, the Dharma or the Sangha, refuge supreme, is there for me. Oh, by the virtue of this truth, may grace abound and victory. Thank you very much.